Hello, folks. This is your Jan 1, 2020 new decade peach update. Not a lot of peachy things, I don't think, this time. I do not think so. But I want to talk today, mostly, well, not exclusively, but mostly, about Iraq and the raid on the U.S. Embassy there. Hadi Mary, who appears to have been the person that led that raid, has been identified as being in charge, more or less. He was a guest of Barack Obama's in the White House during his presidency. Are we done being stupid yet, America, when it comes to things like this? All right, never mind the Obamacare debacle and the fact that we have all kinds of insanity going on with United States healthcare. Town Hall has an article up, which I find is rather interesting, given Town Hall's proclivities when it comes to politics, that where they outline something I've talked about before, which is that the venture capitalists and private equity guys have been coming in to the medical systems, not just in traditional medicine, but also in dentistry, and have been buying up practices and consolidating, which by the way, ends up being an extortion game for health insurers and patients. Why? Because what do you do when a VC firm comes in and essentially buys up all of the practices that are affiliated with hospitals in, say, a 20 or 30 mile radius, and then turns around and tells the insurers, well, if you don't deal with us at these exorbitant prices, we're going to start balance billing your patients. Now, there are some states that have tried to get away from that, and the other thing that has come in is that if you're on Medicare, you're protected from the balance billing game by Medicare's requirements. But if you're in a private sector, that is not true. And so this extortion game gets very, very handy for them to play. There was a person on my forum that was talking about having being in a conversation with one of these PE VC kind of folks that got involved in air ambulances, and a guy was chortling about how much money he had managed to essentially steal. I pointed out that individual was very fortunate he had not had that kind of conversation with me, because I have someone that I actually care about who got bent over the table by one of those firms a few years ago. Fortunately, the person that they bent over the table didn't have anything at the time, and I have a suspicion that they may or may not follow my advice. I don't pay that close attention to their financial situation, but I told them what I would do if I was in their shoes. I probably would have hauled off and cocked that guy and wound up getting arrested for battery. The thing though, let's go back to Iraq, okay? Because frankly, if I start on the healthcare thing and really get into it today, this is going to be a 30-minute podcast. I don't feel like doing one. Iraq is a place we never should have been. All right, certainly not the second time. The first time we went in there, when Saddam went into Kuwait, and we had an actual defense agreement with Kuwait, that one I can defend, because we had another nation we were friendly with that came and actually asked us for help, and they had been invaded. Okay, so I'm not all that exercised about Iraq War One. I am exercised about the fact that we didn't just kill everybody when we blocked them off after we came in there. That's what we should have done. See, this is the problem with our view of war, is that it's not really war anymore. War is a thing that you do where you go in there and you blow the other guy's shit up and you kill his people until he sues for peace. And the only peace that you accept is unconditional surrender. All of their capital equipment gets destroyed. All their stuff gets ruined. And if necessary, you do whatever you have to do so they can't do it again. Well, we of course didn't do that, right? We seem to think that we can go into Iraq and play this game with them in the area with Iran, in the area too. Iran, of course, disagrees. But at the root of it, all of this nonsense that's going on over there, for the most part, I mean, there's an ISIS element too, but for the most part, the root of this is the Sunni Shia thing. These people just do not want to live under the rule of the other. The Sunni will not agree to live under a Shia interpretation of Islam and a government that runs that way, and the Shia will not agree to live under a Sunni. Okay, so that's the old, this house is too big for all of us, and some of us are going to have to leave. And if you won't leave, well, by God, we're going to make you. And if you still say no, then by God, we're going to come in there and we're going to start killing people. But I think it is most interesting that the Obama administration essentially had this idea that we could play Madisonian nation building over there. And by the way, they weren't the only ones. The Bush administration did it too, right? Remember? Yeah, Bush and Gulf War II? Yeah, okay. So don't say that this is just a one way or the other way kind of thing, because it's not. But we have now had supposedly Iraqis, really more like Iranians, that came in there and decided that they were going to sack our embassy. And boy, didn't that happen? Didn't that happen in Iran once before? I think it did. So what are we doing here? Just think about this. What are we really doing here when you get down to it? What sort of BS are we trying to project into the Middle East? The base problem here is that you have two groups of people that just do not get along, and they are not going to get along, and it's been going on for a hell of a long time, far longer than the United States has been going on. And what is our view of this? If we really think that we have the right to impose this kind of stuff on other countries, then we just need to go in there and kill all of them until somebody sues for peace. Which, by the way, do not take this as being any kind of an endorsement of that kind of foreign policy, because that's bullshit. Now, it is time for us to say, that's enough of that crap, we're leaving. Now, I happen to think, in the instant case, what Trump has done, which is sent some Marines over there. And by the way, there are rumors that there have been a substantial number of people activated to head over there. So don't think this is over, because I don't think it is. That's probably a true rumor. And in the context of protecting our people and our land, because remember, an embassy is our territory within that country. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. However, we need to take a close look at the foreign policy side of this thing and say, all right, that's enough. But you know what? We're not going to do it on either side of the aisle. Oh, yeah, there's lots of screaming. Oh, those Iranians, they're so terrible. Those Iraqis, they're so terrible. Folks, the real problem is we seem to think that we can force people who refuse to get along, that they would rather be dead or kill the other guy than live in a country ruled by some other religious faction. We think that we have the right to go in there and tell them they can't live that way. Well, based upon what? Where did we get that authority? Where did we get the right to do that? We never had it, and we still don't. So why don't we cut the bullshit? You know we're not gonna, but you damn well ought to insist that we do, because sooner or later, if we want to try to project this and project power in that area, then by God, we ought to just go over there and annex the damn thing. And if you're going to tell me that you think that we ought to go over into Iran or Iraq and tell them how they have to live and how their government has to work and what they ought to have for a system of law and custom and everything else, then by God, just annex the damn thing and be done with it. But no. The United Nations would scold us. Well, you know what? What is this bullshit that we're coming up with now? Now, you identify a bunch of ISIS guys that are planning some kind of terrorist attack against something that is a U.S. asset, then go over there and target them and blow them up. I have no problem with taking out somebody who is actively in the process of trying to put together something to kill Americans or destroy American infrastructure. I have no problem with that. However, that does not extend to us sticking our face in somebody else's political and geopolitical aspect of things and say, oh, well, we have to impose our form of government and our view of how it's supposed to work, and we're going to play Madison over in Iran or Iraq or both or Christ, Syria for that matter. Speaking of Syria, supposed gas attack, right? Remember this? That's now been proven that there were documents destroyed that appeared to prove that it didn't happen. So and incidentally, may I point out to those of you that are on the rah, 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 go get them, go kill them all side of things, that if you kill people under false pretense, that's murder. And if you target an ethnic group under false pretense, the common word for that in the international law vernacular is genocide. So maybe it's about time that we start thinking about what we're really doing in this country, eh? I'm your ticker guy. Wake the hell up. It's 2020.